I'm Bart, 24 years old, and for the fifth consecutive year, my parents completely forgot my birthday while showering my younger sister with extravagant gifts. The breaking point came when Amanda received a brand new car for turning 20, complete with a giant red bow, while my birthday 3 weeks earlier might as well have been any other Tuesday. After years of being the invisible child, I finally made a decision that would change everything. Before I get into how my entire family imploded, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own home. Growing up in our middle-class suburban neighborhood in Chicago, I always sensed something was off about my place in our family dynamic. Our house on Maple Street was picture perfect from the outside, a 2-story colonial with a well-maintained lawn that my father Richard took pride in. My mother Diane worked as a real estate agent, always impeccably dressed and maintaining appearances. Then there was my sister Amanda, 4 years younger than me, who somehow became the center of our family universe from the moment she was born. The earliest memory I have of the favoritism was my 7th birthday. I had been promised a small party with friends from school, but when the day came, my mother informed me we had to cancel because Amanda had a dance recital. Instead of cake with my friends, I sat in a stuffy auditorium watching 4-year-olds stumble through choreography. My parents beamed at Amanda like she was performing on Broadway, completely forgetting that it was supposed to be my special day. As we grew older, the pattern only intensified. Amanda's room was redecorated every couple of years to match her evolving interests, while my posters were considered damage to the walls. When I made honor roll consistently throughout high school, it warranted a nod and a good job. When Amanda passed algebra with a C-, my parents took her out for a celebration dinner. But the birthday situation took the favoritism to another level. It started on my 19th birthday, my first year of college. I was coming home for the weekend, dropping hints for weeks about wanting to celebrate. When I arrived, neither of my parents mentioned my birthday. I waited all day thinking perhaps they were planning a surprise. Nothing came. When I finally brought it up at dinner, my mother's eyes widened in genuine shock. "Oh my goodness, that was today," she had gasped, exchanging guilty looks with my father. "We've been so busy with your father's work project." I accepted their rushed apologies, and the gift card they hastily presented the next day. I told myself it was an honest mistake. The next year, history repeated itself. This time, the excuse was my mother's big real estate listing. The year after that, they were preoccupied with Amanda's college applications. By my 22nd birthday, I had taken to reminding them a week in advance, dropping it casually into conversation. "So, my birthday is next Saturday," I mentioned during a family dinner. "We know, Bart," my father had said with slight irritation, as if I was nagging him. Yet when Saturday came, my phone remained silent until evening, when my mother called to ask if I could help Amanda shop for dorm supplies. Not a single mention of my birthday. When I brought it up, there was the familiar pattern of shock, apology, and promises to make it up to me. Promises that never materialized. By my 23rd birthday, I had stopped expecting acknowledgement. I spent the day alone in my apartment, treating myself to takeout and a movie. My phone buzzed once, a text from Amanda, saying "Happy B-Day, bro," with no capitals or punctuation. Clearly a last-minute thought. Throughout all this, I tried to be the perfect son. I graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in accounting, secured a stable job at a respected firm in downtown Chicago, and became financially independent within a year of graduation. I never asked my parents for money, never caused problems, never rebelled. I thought if I just achieved enough, they would finally see me. Meanwhile, Amanda drifted through community college, changing majors twice frequently, calling home for extra money, and somehow receiving endless patience and support for her journey of self-discovery. When she totaled her first car after texting while driving, my parents replaced it within a week. When I needed new tires for my 10-year-old sedan that I had saved for and purchased myself, my father suggested I budget better. My relationship with each family member had its own dysfunction. My father Richard treated me like a slightly interesting colleague, making small talk about sports and politics, but never asking about my hopes or struggles. My mother Diane would sometimes show fleeting interest in my life, but conversations inevitably circled back to Amanda or herself. As for my sister, we had moments of genuine connection, but they were overshadowed by her casual acceptance of her golden child status. By the time my 24th birthday approached, Resentment had built a permanent home in my chest. I had tried dropping hints 3 weeks in advance. I was thinking of taking off work for my birthday this year, I mentioned during a Sunday family dinner. "That's nice, honey," my mother replied before immediately turning to Amanda. "Have you decided what you want to do for your birthday next month?" 20 is such a milestone. I exchanged glances with my father, hoping he would correct her, or at least acknowledge my upcoming day. He simply sipped his water and asked Amanda if she had passed her economics class this semester. That night, driving back to my apartment, I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Something was shifting inside me, a slow realization that perhaps this wasn't something I could fix with more achievement or patience. For the first time, I allowed myself to wonder if my parents simply didn't care about me the way parents should. 3 weeks after my completely forgotten 24th birthday, I pulled up to my parents' house for Amanda's birthday celebration. The contrast couldn't have been more painful. The front yard featured a large banner reading "Happy 20th Birthday." Amanda balloons in her favorite colors, purple and silver, were tied to the mailbox and front porch railing. Cars lined the street indicating that extended family and friends were already inside. I sat in my car for a moment, steeling myself. In my trunk was the gift I had saved for a pair of wireless headphones Amanda had mentioned wanting. They had cost nearly a week's worth of grocery money, but I had always tried to be the bigger person to not let my parents' behavior affect how I treated my sister. Inside the house had been transformed. Streamers hung from the ceiling, professional-looking flower arrangements adorned every surface, and a catering team was setting up in the dining room. My mother spotted me and waved enthusiastically. "Bart, you're here. Can you help set up the dessert table? The cake is being delivered any minute." "No, hello, no. How are you just immediate delegation of a task?" I nodded and headed to the kitchen, where I found my father arranging an impressive spread of Amanda's favorite foods. "Son, good timing. Grab those platters and follow the caterer's layout on this paper." I worked silently, arranging cupcakes and chocolate-covered strawberries according to the professional diagram. Through the kitchen window, I could see a tent had been set up in the backyard with elegantly decorated tables. "Is this a birthday party or a wedding?" I muttered to myself. "What was that?" My father glanced up. "Nothing. This looks really nice." "Well, 20 is special. Your sister only turns 20 once." The statement hung in the air between us. I had turned 20, then 21, 22, 23, and most recently 24, with barely an acknowledgement. I swallowed the response rising in my throat. Guests continued to arrive. Aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents' friends, and at least 20 of Amanda's friends from school. My Uncle Frank clapped me on the shoulder. "Bart, how's the accounting world treating you? Still crunching those numbers?" "It's going well, Uncle Frank. I actually got promoted last month, too." "Oh, look, there's Amanda." He immediately abandoned our conversation as my sister made her grand entrance down the stairs wearing a new dress that still had the price tag partially visible from behind a $300 to $100 outfit. I'd later learn. Everyone gathered around her, exclaiming over how grown-up she looked, how beautiful she was, what an amazing young woman she had become. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching my parents beam with pride. These were the same parents who had texted me, "Happy birthday. Sorry we missed it 3 days after my birthday," with no further acknowledgement. The party moved to the backyard tent, where a 3-course meal was served. My mother had arranged a slideshow of Amanda's life, projected onto a screen at the front of the tent. I appeared in exactly 3 of the 86 photos, always at the edge of the frame or partially cut off. After dinner came the speeches. My father stood, champagne glass raised. When Amanda was born, I knew she was special. She has exceeded every expectation, bringing joy and light into our lives every day. Even when she struggled, her determination inspires us. Her kindness, her spirit, her beautiful heart, she makes us proud in ways we never imagined possible. My mother wiped away tears before adding her own tribute. "Amanda, watching you grow into this amazing young woman has been the greatest privilege of my life. You are everything a mother could hope for in a daughter." I sat frozen, their words cutting deeper than any knife could. Had they ever felt that way about me? Had they ever seen me as anything other than an obligation? Then came the moment that would finally break me. My father clinked his glass again and announced it was time for the big gift. He handed Amanda an envelope, which she opened with theatrical excitement. Inside was a single key, with a luxury car brand logo. "No way. Are you serious?" she screamed, jumping up and down. My father nodded toward the front of the house. "Why don't you go see for yourself?" The entire party followed Amanda to the driveway, where a brand new luxury SUV sat with an enormous red bow on top. Not just any car, a $60,000 vehicle that my parents definitely couldn't comfortably afford on their combined income. "We know how hard college has been for you, my mother," said hugging Amanda as she jumped up and down. "You deserve something special for pushing through." Amanda had barely maintained a 2.5 GPA while taking the minimum credit hours. Meanwhile, I had worked through college, graduated with honors, and received a used car with 100,000 miles on it for my graduation, which I had been endlessly thanked for being realistic about. I stood at the back of the crowd, something inside me finally snapping into clarity. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my friend Tyler. "How's the Golden Child's party going?" I slipped away from the celebration, walking around to the side of the house where I could have privacy. I called Tyler instead of texting back, my voice shaking as I described the scene. "They got her a luxury SUV, Tyler. $60,000 minimum. 3 weeks after they completely forgot my birthday exists. Again. Dude, that's messed up. Why are you still there? Come over. We'll order pizza, and you can rant all you want." I glanced back at the celebration. No one had noticed my absence. Amanda was sitting in her new car beaming as people took photos of her behind the wheel. "I'm leaving now," I said. "I don't think I'm coming back this time." "What do you mean?" "I mean to any of it. I'm done." I slipped out without saying goodbye to anyone. Not a single person called or texted to ask where I'd gone. When I checked social media that evening, my mother had posted 27 photos from the party with the caption, "The most perfect day for our perfect girl. No parents could be prouder." I stared at those words until they blurred, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't just favoritism or forgetfulness. This was a message written in neon: I didn't matter to them. I never had, and I never would. Back in my apartment that night, I couldn't sleep. The image of my parents' faces, as they handed Amanda those car keys, kept replaying in my mind. The unbridled joy, the pride, the love that I had spent 24 years trying to earn even a fraction of. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time since I'd started my job. I spent the day making a list in my journal documenting every birthday, holiday, and milestone where my parents had shown their true priorities. It wasn't just birthdays, it was Christmas gifts. Amanda always received items from her wish list, while I got generic gift cards, family vacations planned around Amanda's schedule, and interests and even everyday interactions where my achievements were footnotes, while Amanda's mediocrity received standing ovations. That afternoon, I had a scheduled session with Dr. Marshall, the therapist I had started seeing 6 months earlier for what I had called general anxiety. As I sat in his office, the words poured out of me in a torrent. "I think I need to cut them off," I concluded after recounting the car incident. "I think I need to remove myself from this equation entirely." Dr. Marshall leaned forward. "That's a significant step, Bart. What's driving this decision now specifically?" The car was just so blatant. It's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. And I realized something watching them with Amanda. They're never going to change. This isn't a phase or a misunderstanding. This is who they are and who they've always been. Family estrangement is a serious decision, but sometimes it's necessary for mental health, Dr. Marshall said carefully. If you're considering this path, we should discuss how to approach it in a way that protects your well-being. That evening, I invited my closest friends Tyler, Rachel, and Marcus to my apartment. I needed perspectives from people who knew me but weren't entangled in my family drama. "I'm thinking of cutting off contact with my parents," I announced, as we sat around my living room. Their reactions varied. Tyler, who had witnessed my parents' behavior firsthand over the years, immediately supported the idea. "Honestly, man, I've been wondering when you'd reach this point. They treat you like garbage." Rachel, always the mediator, suggested trying a heart-to-heart conversation first. Maybe they don't realize how their actions affect you. People can be oblivious. Marcus, whose own relationship with his parents was complicated, offered a middle ground. What about taking a temporary break? Tell them you need space. See if they make any effort to understand why. I considered their perspectives, but something had solidified inside me. I've tried talking to them. I've dropped hints. I've made direct comments. I've asked why Amanda's milestones get parades while mine go unnoticed. They either dismiss it, promise to do better, or act like I'm being petty for keeping score. That night, after my friends left, I went down an internet rabbit hole, researching family estrangement and emotional neglect. Article after article described situations eerily similar to mine. One psychologist wrote that adult children who estrange from parents often do so after years of trying to make the relationship work, contrary to the popular belief that it's a hasty or rebellious decision. 2 days later, while cleaning out some old boxes, I found a family photo album I had taken when moving out. Flipping through it, I noticed a pattern I had never consciously registered before. In nearly every family photo, I was physically at the edge of the frame, sometimes partially cut off. In group poses, my parents stood with Amanda between them, while I was positioned slightly apart. The visual evidence of my outsider status was so clear, it took my breath away. That was the final confirmation I needed. I began making concrete plans for cutting contact. I researched apartments across town, finding one in a quiet neighborhood far from my parents' usual haunts. I made a list of all the places I would need to update my address. I looked into changing my phone number. The hardest part was drafting the email I would send them. I spent days writing, deleting, and rewriting, trying to find the right balance between expressing my pain and maintaining my dignity. I didn't want it to sound like a tantrum or a bid for attention. I wanted them to understand that this was the result of years of accumulated hurt. The final version read, Mom and Dad, after considerable thought, I've made the decision to step away from our family relationship. For years, I have tried to understand why I have been consistently treated as less important than Amanda. I've made excuses for forgotten birthdays, dismissed unequal treatment, and continued to show up, hoping something would change. The contrast between how my 24th birthday was completely forgotten and the extravagant celebration and expensive gift for Amanda's 20th birthday made something painfully clear to me. This dynamic will never change. I need to prioritize my mental health and self-worth. Effective immediately, I will be moving to a new address that I will not be sharing. I am changing my phone number and will be taking a complete break from contact with all family members. This isn't a request for apologies or promises to do better. Those have come and gone without change. This is me accepting reality and making a healthy choice for myself. Bart. I didn't send it immediately. I sat with it for another week, making sure this wasn't a reactive decision. During that time, tellingly not one member of my family reached out to check on me after I had abruptly left Amanda's party. I signed a lease on the new apartment scheduled movers and began packing up my life. There was a strange sense of peace in these concrete actions, like I was finally taking control after years of passively accepting my role as the forgotten son. The night before my move, I sent the email, immediately blocked their numbers on my phone, and deactivated my social media accounts. The sense of finality was both terrifying and liberating. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my own worth rather than waiting for them to assign it to me. The first week of silence was oddly peaceful. My new apartment was smaller, but had character exposed, brick walls, large windows, and none of the emotional baggage of my previous place. I focused on settling and arranging furniture and establishing new routines. There were moments of doubt and waves of grief, but underlying it all was a strange sense of relief. That peace shattered on day 8 when I checked my email account and found 27 messages from my parents and sister. The subjects ranged from, "What is this?" to "Please talk to us" to "You're being ridiculous." I created a special folder to store them without reading the contents, not ready to absorb their reactions. My work email, which I hadn't thought to block, contained messages from both parents. Those I had to open to make sure they weren't somehow contacting me about a genuine emergency. My mother's read Bart, whatever misunderstanding has occurred, this behavior is completely unacceptable. Your father and I are worried sick. Call home immediately. My father's was more direct. Son, this childish attempt at attention-seeking needs to stop now. Your mother is beside herself. Man up and call us. Neither message acknowledged any understanding of why I might have taken this step. I blocked their addresses from my work email and continued my silence. By the end of the second week, my sister Amanda had sent a barrage of increasingly hostile text messages to my work phone. What the hell is wrong with you? Mom is crying every day because of you. Do you know how selfish you're being right now? All this because I got a car, grow up. Her messages revealed that my parents had spun a narrative where my estrangement was purely a jealous reaction to her birthday gift, not the culmination of years of emotional neglect. The next escalation came from extended family. My Uncle Frank called my office, directly somehow getting past the receptionist. Bart, it's your Uncle Frank. What in God's name is going on? Your mother is falling apart. I've made my decision, Uncle Frank. I'm not discussing it further. Is this about Amanda's car? Because that's what everyone is saying. You're 24 years old, Bart. Too old to be throwing tantrums over who got what present. It's not about the car. It's about 24 years of being treated like I don't matter. But I'm not surprised that's the story they're telling. Your parents love you, Bart. This is breaking their hearts. Did they tell you they forgot my birthday? Again, for the 5th year in a row. There was a pause on the line. Well, people get busy. That doesn't mean they don't love you. Goodbye, Uncle Frank. My Aunt Brenda tried next through a lengthy email detailing how families sometimes have misunderstandings but need to work through them. She at least seemed to be trying to understand both sides, though it was clear she didn't have the full picture. The real shock came 3 weeks in, when my parents showed up at my workplace unannounced. I was in a meeting when my colleague Jordan knocked on the conference room door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation in reception. Your parents are here, and they're causing quite a scene. My heart pounded as I excused myself and walked to the reception area. There stood my mother and father, my mother's eyes red from crying, my father's face set in anger. Bart. My mother rushed toward me. Thank God. We've been so worried. Why are you doing this to us? I was acutely aware of my coworkers watching this unfold. My father stepped forward. This ends now, son. You've made your point. It's time to stop this nonsense and come home for dinner on Sunday so we can sort this out. The assumption that I was simply throwing a tantrum that could be solved with a family dinner was so dismissive of my actual concerns that I felt a surge of validation for my decision. I'm at work, I said quietly. This is completely inappropriate. I asked for space, and you're violating that boundary by coming here. Boundary. My father scoffed. We're your parents. You don't get to set boundaries with us. Actually, I do, and you're proving exactly why I needed to. I turned to the receptionist. Carla, if they don't leave voluntarily, please call security. You would have us thrown out. My mother's voice rose, drawing even more attention. After all, we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? Mom, can you even remember the last time you acknowledged my birthday or showed up for anything that mattered to me? My father grabbed my arm. Lower your voice. You're making a spectacle. I'm not the one who showed up at someone's workplace to create a scene. I removed his hand from my arm. Please leave. I have nothing more to say to either of you. As security approached, my parents finally left, my mother sobbing dramatically, my father promising this wasn't over. I returned to my meeting, hands shaking, to find my colleagues pretending they hadn't witnessed my family imploding in public. Later that afternoon, my boss Lauren called me into her office. I was certain I was about to be reprimanded for the disruption. Bart, about what happened earlier. I'm so sorry about that, Lauren. It won't happen again. Actually, I wanted to check if you're okay. That looked intense. Her concern caught me off guard. I'm handling it. Family stuff. Well, if you need to talk or if you need some personal time, just let me know. And don't worry, I've instructed reception not to allow those individuals into the building again. Her support was unexpected and touching. It was the kind of consideration I had rarely experienced from my actual family. The next escalation was the most shocking. My parents created a narrative on social media that I was having some kind of mental health crisis. My mother posted a long, emotion-laden status asking for prayers for our son who is going through a difficult time and has cut off his loving family who only want to help him. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years started reaching out concerned that I was suicidal or having a breakdown. My father apparently told his golf buddies I had joined a cult that had convinced me to cut ties with my family. The most painful betrayal came from Amanda, who created a series of TikTok videos dramatically detailing how her mentally unstable brother had abandoned the family out of jealousy over her car. The videos went mini-viral in our hometown circle, with dozens of comments sympathizing with her and vilifying me. The strain was taking a toll. I had trouble sleeping, jumped whenever my phone rang, and found myself constantly looking over my shoulder in public places, afraid of another confrontation. I started seeing Dr. Marshall twice weekly, instead of once, trying to process the backlash and stay firm in my decision. Through it all, my support system proved invaluable. Tyler would come over with takeout and distract me with video games. Rachel helped me draft responses to concerned friends, explaining that I was perfectly fine, but had needed to establish some distance from my family for personal reasons. Marcus, who worked in IT, helped me create new email addresses and social media accounts under slightly different names so I could stay connected with trusted friends without being found by family. 6 weeks into my estrangement, I received a letter at work, the one address they still had. It was from my father, written on his business letterhead, formally informing me that I had been removed from their will and would no longer be considered part of the family if I continued this childish rebellion. The letter confirmed what I had always suspected: their love had always been conditional. I placed the letter in my evidence folder and continued forward one day at a time, fighting to maintain the boundaries I had set, despite the hurricane of manipulation trying to breach my walls. 3 months into my estrangement, I had established a new normal. My apartment felt like home. I had joined a local soccer league to get out more, and the panic attacks that had plagued me during the initial weeks had subsided. I was starting to believe I might actually make it through this transition successfully. Then came the Saturday morning I needed to restock my kitchen. I deliberately chose a grocery store on the opposite side of town from where my parents shopped, wanting to avoid any possibility of running into them. As I was comparing prices on coffee in aisle 7, I heard a gasp. "Bart? Oh my God, Bart." My mother stood at the end of the aisle, shopping basket in hand, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. My first instinct was to abandon my cart and flee, but there was nowhere to go. She rushed toward me, dropping her basket with a clatter that drew the attention of nearby shoppers. "Where have you been? Do you have any idea what you've put us through? We've been sick with worry." I took a step back, trying to maintain physical space between us. "Mom, I told you I needed space. I'm not doing this here." "Not doing what?" "Talking to your mother, who has been crying herself to sleep for months, who had to get a prescription for anxiety medication because her son disappeared." Her voice had risen to a level that was drawing curious stares from other shoppers. A store employee had paused his restocking to watch the unfolding drama. "Lower your voice, please. This is a public place." "I will not. You don't get to dictate how I express my feelings after what you've put this family through." Something about her phrasing "what you've put this family through" ignited years of suppressed anger. "What I've put you through." My voice rose to match hers. "You forgot my birthday 5 years in a row. 5 years. You threw Amanda a party that cost thousands of dollars and bought her a luxury car 3 weeks after you couldn't even send me a text on my birthday. You have consistently made me feel invisible and unimportant my entire life, and when I finally decided to protect myself from that pain, you made it all about you." My mother's face contorted in shock, whether at my words or the fact that I was actually standing up to her. I couldn't tell. "That's not true. We've always loved both our children equally." "Really? When was my last birthday? What did you do for it? What did you get me?" She blinked rapidly, clearly trying to recall. "That's what I thought." I continued, my voice breaking. "You spent $60,000 on a car for Amanda, but can't remember if you acknowledged my existence on my birthday. That's not equal love, Mom. That's not love at all." By now, a small crowd had gathered at either end of the aisle. My mother noticed them and immediately shifted tactics, tears filling her eyes. How can you say such hurtful things? After all the sacrifices we made for you, we paid for your college. No, you didn't. I had scholarships and loans that I'm still paying off. You paid for Amanda's college. You pay for everything for Amanda. You celebrate everything about Amanda. You love Amanda. And that would be fine if you had any love left for me, but you don't. You never did. The store manager approached cautiously. Folks, is everything okay here? No, I said, surprising myself with my calmness. It's not okay. But I'm leaving now. I abandoned my half-filled cart and walked past my mother, who grabbed at my arm. Don't you walk away from me? We are your family. I gently removed her hand. No, you're people who are biologically related to me. Family makes you feel valued. Family remembers you exist. The walk to my car felt like moving through water. I made it inside before the panic attack hit, gasping for breath, my vision tunneling as the adrenaline crashed. I called Dr. Marshall once I could breathe again, and he talked me through grounding techniques. You stood your ground, Bart. That's significant progress, he said when I had calmed down. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like I just publicly melted down in the cereal aisle. You expressed legitimate feelings that you've been suppressing for years. That's not a meltdown. That's a breakthrough. That evening, as I was still processing the grocery store incident, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. Bart, it's Jake, Amanda's boyfriend. Don't hang up. Jake was the last person I expected to hear from. He and Amanda had been dating for about 8 months, and I had only met him a handful of times. What do you want, Jake? To talk. In person, if possible. There are some things you should know. My instinct was to refuse, but something in his tone gave me pause. Why should I trust this isn't some setup from my family? Because Amanda doesn't know I'm calling you, and if she found out, she'd probably break up with me. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the following day. I arrived early, chose a table with a clear view of the door, and prepared myself for potential manipulation. Jake arrived alone, looking nervous. After getting coffee, he sat across from me and got straight to the point. Your parents have been lying to everyone about why you cut contact. They're telling the family you had some kind of breakdown, possibly drug-related. That doesn't surprise me. But that's not why I wanted to talk to you. The Thing Island. He hesitated. I've seen how they treat you versus Amanda, and it's messed up. Jake proceeded to tell me about family dinners I hadn't attended, where my parents had made dismissive comments about me. About overhearing my mother tell Amanda that she didn't need to be exceptional like you've always tried to be because they loved her just as she was. About my father explicitly saying they needed to make sure Amanda has financial security because I would always land on my feet. The worst was after your email, Jake continued. They were angry, not heartbroken. Your dad said, and I quote, "He'll come crawling back when he realizes he needs us more than we need him." Jake's revelations weren't shocking given what I had experienced, but having an outside perspective validate my reality was powerful. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's wrong. And because Amanda is starting to adopt their attitudes, becoming more entitled, more demanding. I care about her, but I'm seeing sides of her that concern me. The way she talked about you in those videos. He shook his head. I tried to tell her it wasn't right, and she said I needed to pick a side. As Jake spoke, the final pieces clicked into place. My parents weren't just playing favorites, they were textbook narcissists who had cast me as the family scapegoat and Amanda as the golden child. The roles had nothing to do with our inherent worth, and everything to do with their own dysfunction. Thank you for telling me this, I said when he finished. It couldn't have been easy. Just take care of yourself, Bart. And for what it's worth, I think you made the right call walking away. That validation from someone within their circle reinforced my conviction that maintaining my distance was necessary for my well-being. The clarity was painful but liberating. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't overreacting, and I wasn't imagining the toxic dynamic that had shaped my life. 6 months into my estrangement, my new life had begun taking shape. My apartment now felt truly mine, decorated with art I had chosen and furniture that reflected my taste rather than what was practical or cheap. I had developed a close friendship with my neighbor Ethan, who had gone through something similar with his own family years earlier. Work had become a sanctuary rather than just a job. My increased confidence had caught the attention of senior management, leading to a promotion that came with a significant raise and my own office. My boss, Lauren, had become something of a mentor, recognizing potential in me that I was only beginning to see in myself. The biggest change, however, was internal. Without the constant background radiation of trying to earn my parents' approval, I found myself making decisions based solely on what I wanted. I joined a creative writing group, something I had always been interested in, but had dismissed as impractical. I adopted a cat from the local shelter, naming him Winston, despite my father's frequent assertions that pets were needless responsibilities. My social circle had evolved as well. Some friends had drifted away uncomfortable with taking sides in a family conflict they didn't understand. But those who remained formed a support system stronger than any I had experienced before. We had weekly dinner gatherings that became a new kind of family tradition. It was at one of these dinners that I met Eliza, Rachel's coworker. She was intelligent with a sharp sense of humor and a warmth that put everyone at ease. We started dating casually at first, both taking it slow. What struck me most about Eliza was her relationship with her family, loving but with healthy boundaries, supportive, without being enmeshed. The first time I visited her parents' home for dinner, I was startled by how her father asked specific questions about her work and actually listened to the answers. Her mother had photos of Eliza's art projects from college displayed proudly, not because they were exceptional, but because they represented something she had created. "Your family actually likes each other," I observed on the drive home. Eliza laughed. "Of course we do. We drive each other crazy sometimes, but that's normal. The love is always there." Her casual certainty about her family's love was revelatory to me. It reinforced that what I had experienced wasn't normal, and that healthy family relationships were possible. As the holiday season approached, I faced my first Thanksgiving and Christmas without family obligations. The prospect was both liberating and daunting. Eliza invited me to join her family's Thanksgiving, but I declined, feeling it was too soon in our relationship for such a significant step. Instead, I hosted a Friendsgiving at my apartment, inviting Tyler, Rachel, Marcus, Ethan, and a few other close friends. We each contributed dishes, none of us particularly skilled cooks, resulting in a meal that was imperfect, but filled with laughter. There were no tense political discussions, no walking on eggshells, no feeling like an outsider, just genuine connection. "This is the best Thanksgiving I've ever had," I realized aloud, as we sat around my living room after the meal playing board games and talking late into the night. To chosen family, Tyler raised his glass. The people who actually choose to be in your life. The toast resonated deeply. These people were here because they wanted to be, not out of obligation or to maintain appearances. A week before Christmas, a letter arrived at my new address, something that immediately concerned me, since very few people had this information. The envelope had no return address, but I recognized my father's handwriting. I debated whether to open it at all, finally deciding to read it with Dr. Marshall present during our next session, as a buffer against whatever manipulation it might contain. The letter was 3 pages long, written in my father's precise handwriting. "Bart, the holidays approach, and your absence has created a situation that requires addressing. Your mother is struggling with explaining to family and friends why you aren't present for celebrations. Your sister feels abandoned during what should be a family time. While I understand you may have grievances, the manner in which you've chosen to express them has caused significant disruption to our family dynamic. Your mother and I have discussed the situation at length, and we are willing to move forward if you are prepared to put this unfortunate episode behind us. We acknowledge that perhaps there have been times when your achievements weren't given the recognition you felt they deserved. Parenting is not an exact science, and we have always done our best with the tools available to us. That said, your reaction to perceived slights has been disproportionate and concerning. Family relationships require compromise and understanding, not ultimatums and disappearances. If you are ready to rejoin the family, we expect you to reach out before Christmas with an apology for the distress your actions have caused. We can then work together to establish a healthier relationship moving forward. Your father. Dr. Marshall watched my face as I read. "What are you thinking, Bart?" "That there's not a single genuine apology in here. Not one acknowledgement of specific behaviors or how they affected me. Just perceived slights and expectations that I should apologize to them." I set the letter down. The most telling part is where he says they're willing to move forward if I put this unfortunate episode behind us. Translation: pretend it never happened and go back to the exact same dynamic. "That's an insightful reading." Dr. Marshall nodded. "What will you do with this information?" "Nothing," I realized. "This letter just confirms I made the right decision. They still don't see me or hear me. They see a problem to be managed, not a son who was hurt." That clarity was a significant turning point. I had been carrying a small hope that perhaps my absence would trigger some self-reflection on their part, that they might genuinely miss me and recognize what they had lost. The letter extinguished that hope, but instead of devastation, I felt release. In our sessions, Dr. Marshall and I had been working through my tendency to seek external validation, a pattern established by years of trying to earn my parents' approval. We identified how that pattern had affected other relationships and areas of my life. "I don't want to repeat their patterns," I told him. "I don't want to measure people's worth by what they can do for me or how they make me look. I don't want to make anyone else feel the way they made me feel." "That awareness is crucial," he responded. "Many people unconsciously recreate their family dynamics. Your commitment to breaking that cycle is significant." I spent Christmas Day with Eliza and her family after all her mother, having insisted when she learned I would be alone. The contrast between their warm, chaotic celebration and the perfectly orchestrated but emotionally vacant holidays of my childhood was stark. Here gifts were modest but thoughtful, chosen with specific recipients in mind. When Eliza's mother handed me a carefully wrapped package containing a coffee table book about architecture, a subject I had mentioned once in passing, I had to excuse myself to collect my emotions. "Are you okay?" Eliza found me in the hallway. "More than okay," I assured her, just adjusting to what a normal family feels like. The self-forgiveness process was perhaps the most challenging aspect of my healing journey. For years, I had internalized the belief that I was somehow fundamentally unlovable or unworthy of attention. Even knowing intellectually that the issue was my parents' dysfunction, not my worth, the emotional programming ran deep. I joined an online support group for adult children, estranged from parents finding community with others, who understood the complex grief of losing family by choice. Their stories mirrored aspects of mine: the invalidation, the smear campaigns, the self-doubt, and the ultimate liberation of choosing self-respect over toxic connection. Through these shared experiences and continued therapy, I gradually released the guilt and shame I had carried. I began to recognize that my decision to walk away wasn't a failure, but an act of self-preservation and ultimately self-love. By the time spring arrived, bringing with it the anniversary of my decision to cut contact, I had built a life that felt authentically mine, imperfect but genuine, sometimes lonely but never diminishing. I had discovered parts of myself that had been suppressed under the weight of trying to be the son my parents might finally notice. I had found my voice, my boundaries, and my capacity for joy, independent of external validation. The journey wasn't over, but I was no longer lost. Each day without the toxicity of my former family dynamic was another day of becoming more fully myself, and that was worth every difficult moment of the transition. 1 year to the day after sending the email that changed everything, I sat in a park near my apartment reflecting on the journey. The past 12 months had transformed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. The anxious, people-pleasing young man, desperate for parental approval, had given way to someone more confident, more authentic, and paradoxically, more capable of genuine connection. My relationship with Eliza had deepened, built on mutual respect and clear communication. My career was flourishing. I had recently been assigned to lead a team on a major client project. Most importantly, the constant background noise of inadequacy had quieted, replaced by a growing sense of self-worth, independent of external validation. 2 days after this personal anniversary, fate orchestrated an unexpected encounter. I was working on my laptop at a coffee shop when I heard a familiar voice ordering at the counter. Looking up, I saw Amanda for the first time in a year. She hadn't noticed me yet, giving me a moment to decide whether to slip out or stay. Something compelled me to remain. When she turned with her drink and saw me, she froze coffee, sloshing over the rim of her cup. "Bart." "Hello, Amanda." She approached cautiously, as if I might disappear. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the empty chair across from me. An awkward silence stretched between us. "You look good," she finally said. "Different somehow." "A lot has changed." She fidgeted with her cup. "I heard you got promoted. Jake's cousin works in your building." I nodded, waiting. She seemed to be struggling with what to say next. "Mom and Dad are still pretty upset, you know, especially Mom. She talks about you like you died." "I'm sorry. That's been hard for her," I said neutrally. Amanda looked surprised at my response. Perhaps she'd expected defensiveness or anger. "Jake and I broke up," she volunteered. "He said I was too entitled, that I expected everything to revolve around me." She met my eyes directly for the first time. "He said I was becoming like Mom." That admission seemed to cost her something. I felt a flicker of compassion for the journey of self-awareness she might be beginning. That must have been difficult to hear. "Yeah." She twisted a napkin in her hands. "It made me think about some stuff. About us growing up. About how different things were for you and me." I remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. "I always knew they treated me better. I guess I just thought." She trailed off. "That I deserved less." I suggested gently. "No." "Well, maybe. I don't know." She looked down. "They always made it seem like you were so perfect and self-sufficient. Like you didn't need anything because you had it all figured out. I wasn't, and I didn't. I was just trying to earn their attention, the only way I knew how, by being perfect. It never worked." "I see that now," she said quietly. "After you left, it got weird at home. They started putting all this pressure on me. Suddenly my grades weren't good enough. My job wasn't impressive enough. It's like they transferred all their expectations to me." I nodded, unsurprised. When the scapegoat leaves, the family system has to readjust. The what? It's a term from family therapy. In dysfunctional families, people often get assigned roles. I was the scapegoat, the one who carried all the family's dysfunction, the one who was always wrong or lacking. You were the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, who represented all the family's success and good qualities. That sounds messed up. It island. And it has nothing to do with who we actually are. It's about what the parents need from us psychologically. Amanda absorbed this, brow furrowed. "They still don't get it, you know. Why you left. They tell everyone you had some kind of breakdown." I'm not surprised. That fits their narrative better than admitting they consistently neglected me. "I did those TikToks," she admitted, flushing. "I was angry. I felt abandoned. I'm sorry about that." Her apology, unexpected and seemingly genuine, touched me. "Thank you for saying that. Are you ever coming back to the family, I mean?" I considered the question carefully. No. Not unless there were profound changes, and I don't see that happening. Mom and Dad are still insisting they did nothing wrong. She nodded. "They say they gave us both everything we needed, just in different ways." "Then nothing has changed. I can't go back to being invisible and unimportant." "I get that now," she said softly. "I wouldn't want that either." As we parted ways, Amanda hesitated. "Can I call you sometime?" "Just to talk." I'd like that, I said, surprised to find I meant it. "Just you and me, though. No messages to relay from Mom and Dad." She agreed, and we exchanged numbers. I didn't know if anything would come of it, but the door was open for a relationship independent of our parents' toxic dynamic. That conversation reinforced something I had been learning through therapy. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation. I could forgive my parents for being products of their own upbringings and limitations, while still protecting myself from further harm. My birthday approached, the one that had been forgotten 5 times in a row. This year, I decided to reclaim it. I planned a weekend trip to a lakeside cabin with Eliza Tyler and a few other close friends. The evening of my birthday, they surprised me with a cake and thoughtfully chosen gifts that reflected genuine knowledge of who I was and what I valued. As we sat around a bonfire that night, Eliza beside me, friends laughing and sharing stories. I felt a profound sense of belonging. This was what family should feel like, people who see you, hear you, and choose to celebrate your existence, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. My career continued to advance as I brought more confidence and creativity to my work. Without the constant energy drain of trying to manage my parents' perceptions, I had more resources to invest in projects I found meaningful. My boss Lauren had become a significant mentor, providing the kind of guidance and recognition I had always craved from my father. "You've really come into your own this past year," she noted during my performance review. "There's a clarity and conviction to your work that's impressive." My relationship with Eliza deepened into something I had never experienced before, a partnership based on mutual respect and genuine acceptance. Her family had embraced me without reservation, including me in holidays and family events without the undercurrent of judgment I had grown up with. The contrast between her family's dynamic and mine helped me identify more clearly what healthy relationships looked like. There was disagreement without demeaning expectations, without conditional love support, without control. Through therapy and consistent self-reflection, I had come to recognize that worth isn't something assigned by parents or earned through achievement. It's inherent. The challenge wasn't becoming worthy of love. It was unlearning the false narrative that I wasn't already worthy. This understanding transformed how I approached all relationships. I became more authentic, more willing to express needs, and set boundaries, more able to give freely without keeping score. The people in my life responded to this authenticity with greater openness of their own, creating connections far more meaningful than the carefully managed impressions I had once prioritized. The estrangement from my parents remained in place. Occasionally, they still attempted contact cards at Christmas and email on my birthday. Ironically, they remembered it now. Once even a package that I returned unopened. Each contact was carefully worded to make me seem unreasonable for maintaining distance, without any genuine acknowledgement of the behaviors that had necessitated that distance. I had accepted that some relationships cannot be fixed, especially when the other parties refuse to recognize their role in the dysfunction. This wasn't the outcome I would have chosen. In an ideal world, my parents would have responded to my absence with self-reflection and genuine desire for change. But I had made peace with the reality, rather than clinging to the fantasy. What surprised me most about this journey was discovering that family isn't defined by DNA, but by how people treat each other. The friends who had stood by me, who had created new traditions with me, who had seen me at my lowest and still chosen to remain, they had become my true family. As I look back on this year of transformation, I realized that cutting contact wasn't the end of something but the beginning. It wasn't an act of destruction, but of creation, creating space for authentic self-discovery, for relationships that nourish rather than deplete, for a life defined by genuine connection rather than performance and pretense. If you're watching this and recognizing your own family dynamics in my story, know that you're not alone. Your feelings are valid, your experiences are real, and you deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can provide or how you make others look. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the most necessary ones. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your mental health? How did you find the courage to put yourself first? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about navigating complex family dynamics and building a life that honors your authentic self. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it. Sometimes the family you choose values you more than the family you were born into.